And can I just say, I've shown you this, right? I'm going to be the most efficient guy, but can I also say, I charged it 11 days ago and it has 80% battery left.
Oh, love it. Love it, love it, love it. Why is that coming up for us while we're sitting here live? I have no idea. That is fascinating to look at. Hi, everybody. We are here. This is the MCC Virtual Business Box Lunch. It's showing me something really bloody weird on YouTube right now. I have no idea why it's showing that off, but you know what? It's the vagaries of technology, and we will just roll with it. I am your host, Mitch Camage. A 1% business needs a 1% attitude. And today, riding shotgun with me is one of my brothers from other mothers, Mr. Matt Hewson. And he is always our broker of certainty. Tiny little panel today. That's okay. We're going to move lightning fast on a couple of things. Topics are relevant, as always, to what's going on week that was in business, what's relevant to you, small, medium, large enterprise, and of course, local, regional, national, and international effects, what those mean. So I'm going to stop for a moment talking because normally I'm the savage at business. Today, it's a 1% business that we got to think about on a Friday afternoon. I'm going to flip it over to Matt for a moment while I do a tiny bit of button pushing. And from there, we're going to get started. Matt, floor is yours.
Thanks, Mitch. I have been working with Mitch for so many years now, and I'm grateful for the process. But we are working with small businesses, medium-sized businesses, large-scale businesses, and their people to empower them to just get shit done. Oh, did you push that button yet?
I pushed the button.
Perfect. To get shit done. And How do you do that? You do that with efficiency, with productivity, but you have to have a tool and some toolkits out there. And I'm grateful because Mitch has kind of laid out a fantastic foundation for myself and for our clients. And now it's just about sharing it with the world on platforms like this.
I lied. Now I clicked the button. YouTube ain't coming for us. It's fine. It's fine. They're not coming for us at all.
Fantastic.
All right. I finished some of the button pushing I need to do on the back end. Set it up today. Topics today. And again, I really wish our other compadre, Paul, would be here because he's always so circumspect. He's always so slow acting. He takes his time. It's really measured to come out. You and I are rapid fire. So I would love to have him here today. But hey, he's off on a well-deserved break right before his birthday is coming up. So all hail the International Day of Paul. We love you, buddy. Go have a lot of fun. I have to do one more thing really quickly. And then I'm going to come right back and all my attention is going to be focused right here. I have done that thing. Finish up. Good to go. I lied. There was two things I have to do.
Well, that's because it's a long weekend down in the U.S. with our U.S. partners, right? So we've got to make sure that we celebrate them a little bit too.
Absolutely. All right, we are back. Today's topics for everybody's edification, information, education, etc. It's easy. Losing, change, the spice of life. Stuff happens all the time. Now, normally we come in here and we talk about, hey, this is what just happened in the marketplace. This is the stuff that's kind of going on. Here's what's really kind of happening out there in the situation, sales-wise, hiring-wise, logistics. We've talked cryptocurrency, AI. We've talked everything under the sun. But we often don't talk about the actual human elements of what goes on in business. And that includes things like losing. Losing happens a lot in business. If you aren't losing, I'm going to challenge you right now. You suck because clearly you're not taking enough risks. Now, that doesn't mean that every day of your life and everything you do in business needs to be so volatile that the likelihood of your business sinking to the bottom of the ocean, never to be found again, is going to happen. However, losses happen all the time. There's a reason salespeople don't sell 100%. They don't. If I talk to 10 people, I'm not getting 10 people to buy. It's mathematics, statistics, and time that come in here, which means that for every one person that buys, 2 people are going to say no, 5 people are going to say no, 10 people are going to say no, 100 people are going to say no. That's a lot of losses. It doesn't mean you're a loser, but it's a lot of losses. It's a lot of things that pile up on top of us. Business is prevalent with how much it is iterative. There's the fancy word of the day, iterative, meaning that as things happen, we're living with them and dealing with them. An awful lot of business, particularly small and medium enterprise, is situational, which means that there is constant adaptation. And when there's adaptation, things get missed. But losses are a part of business and they're a part of life. So Matt, our topic between you and I today, we're going to start with losses. What is a big loss and a little loss? I have asked that question before in the last little bit. And how did you go about dealing with it?
Yeah, great questions. And I want to kind of frame this with this statement. If you are a Major League Baseball player and you hit the ball 30% of the time, you're making 8 or 9 figures, right? So it's not about always winning. I've found through my career that the losses are actually the biggest part of the momentum forward. So, Mitch, obviously, some more in-depth details about me, but I found some success in my early 20s and thought that I could duplicate that along all industry, and went into an industry that I was not a technician or a professional in. And it was a pretty big loss. And by big loss, meaning like a decade's worth of payment back, because we had lost quite a bit of money. And it is what it is. It was my MBA in asking the right questions and making sure that contracts and USAs make sense and are longer rather than shorter. And again, I look at that now, and it brought me to who I am today. And on the small scale, again, I still prospect. I still want to go out and cold call, and you're not going to get 100% yeses. And honestly, if you did, I think that you're not stretching and reaching far enough. So, if you make one call a week and yes, you do land it, great percentages. But I would say that overall, based off of the numbers, fail 70% of the time. Right. And one of my mentors early on said, Matt, you're going to be a success in this industry when you have a book of 1,000 no's, because for every no, you're going to have some yeses, right? Or for every 100 no's, you're going to get 30 yeses. And those 30 yeses are the ones that are going to create success for you. And I think that was a great learning for me.
I'm actually diving in here really quick because we've got a number of people that have popped in and joined us today. So our live audience today right now, thank you so much for joining us. If you want to comment, add questions, thoughts, etc., please go and do it. Hey, our other brother Don's coming in here shortly. Popped in last minute, saw the message. He's going to come in and join us as well. We'll get his thoughts on this topic in a moment. But for our live audience, thank you so much for joining us. It is a pleasure seeing you. Don't hesitate to drop questions or comments into the chat window. We'll try and reply as expediently as possible. And Don, we're going to throw him to the wolves. He just jumped in right now. He's eating lunch still. He's going, what the hell? I'm here. What do I do? All right, my brother, we're making it really easy and difficult. Loss and change. These are constants in life, constants in business. Question I just asked Matt is, what is a big or a little loss that you've seen or something you've experienced throughout life, and how did you deal with it? And the preface to that is, losses come every day. You don't sell 100% of the time. You don't hire right 100% of the time. You don't make the best decisions with your money 100% of the time. You don't interact or engage with your employees the best all the time. You don't talk to your spouse or your partner that well all the time. You don't talk to your kids or your parents that well all the time. These things happen in life. So Don, losses, big or little, what happened? How did you deal with it?
Well, I was thinking about that just the other day. I don't know why, but how did I get to where I am? And it wasn't one like smooth career. I had a number of situations where, at least 3, where companies that I put my heart and soul into got bought out. And all of a sudden, the loss of, the 3 years or 5 years or 10 years in one case of putting all your strength and stuff into this thing is now gone. They got bought out. They don't need you. They got other people. They bring somebody in. It's like, holy, here I am back on the street looking for a job again. And I thought, I'd retire here, and I think I thought that every time. This good company, I'll retire here, but get kicked in the teeth and then have to dust yourself off and get going. And I was thinking, maybe that was helpful for me to be sort of a well-rounded coach that I think I am today, because I went from different industries and moved around, just like maybe Matt tried this or tried that. Having that wider breadth of experience maybe is what is useful to clients that I deal with now, is that I've been there and worked this industry and that industry, but also experiences those ups and downs and how to, say you got a family and stuff. You just can't stop and pout for a while. I give myself, about a half a day to do that, and then hey, I got to start looking for a job. So I've gone through like 3 job changes like that where I just got dumped. So
you're bringing up an important point, and that's going to be the next question in the chain. And Don, you're already running into it, and I love it. What is your personal methodology? But let's also construct a great way for other people to deal with it. Now, there are losses that hurt because we are emotionally invested, or our hope is tied to it an awful lot, right? So many people have not unrequited love, unrequited hope. Man, this has to work out. I really can't wait till this works out. I hope this works out. Man, when this works, it's going to be great. It doesn't work. And now you don't have what you want. Maybe it's hurt you a bit.
Oh, and Mitch just froze. Perfect. Well, that's all right. If he comes back, I think that we could start there. And Don, actually, I would love to, if it's okay, I'll share with you, and then I'd love to hear yours. But
go ahead.
It seems to me oh, there you are, Mitch.
There we go.
We were going to just continue on, but no, let's recoup the last 20 seconds. So what were you chatting about?
I was asking your personal method or your personal strategy to get through there, but let's start to construct something for people to take away. There's got to be something. Some things hurt, some things are lessons, and some things are just situations that happen, right? Our emotional range or emotional understanding certainly gives us a different frame of reference for how we view the severity of when we lose. And some losses are permanent, right? Job loss is permanent. You're never working at that place again. Company closing down is permanent. You're never doing that again, right? Divorce is fairly permanent. Never going to do that again. Well, some people get remarried to the same person, so go with God, my child, right? But after all, losses are a part of life. We have to have some method to deal with it, because an awful lot of people, now I'll take it to a slight step further as well, dealing with loss is part of that great developmental, that skill, that competency called resilience, right? The more resilient you become, the more likely you are to bounce back quicker. So let's talk about strategies, what you do individually, and what we think other people should start to take forward for themselves to help them build a little bit of that resilience.
Mm-hmm. I'll go back to the one example when I was an electronics store and got let go as they got bought out by another corporation, the main parent. And for no reason, it was just, hey, we're not going to have these kind of stores anymore, and we don't need regional managers. So immediately what I needed to do was kind of get in my own head, and I took a walk I was in the Calgary area, so I went to the Calgary Zoo, and I just had to walk through that zoo a few times, out in nature, just kind of putting the story together in my own head and understanding it, and just kind of rationalizing it, because it just hits you like a ton of bricks. Like, hey, you're done. Today's the day. Get your stuff out of here. And it's like, it's a shock. So I had to kind of go and kind of sort through that in my own head and understand that maybe this wasn't necessarily my fault. It's something bigger that was there, and I'm just a casualty. But what am I going to do about it? And so I had to kind of, think and decompress it for a bit. I wasn't ready to face my spouse or family and say, hey, I lost my job. And, I had to have some of my me time first, kind of get my head on straight before I approached other people. And because you could easily say the wrong things and, mess up some other relationship that's really nothing to do with why you're not, at that company anymore. So I get my head straight. And then I quickly try to come about and say, well, what's my next steps? I always like a plan. Well, what am I going to do? And maybe if I don't know what kind of work I'm going to do, maybe I'm going to change. Well, I need to explore that and make some conversations and just starting to get integrated back in, at least get the process going about how I'm going to solve it for the next one. And that seems to make you feel better and give you a sense of how to get up in the next morning because you have a sense of purpose. Today, I'm going to meet 3 people and talk about different careers, or I'm going to start to work on my resume or whatever. It was just having a plan of attack afterwards, but decompress, sort that out, make sure you're cool with all your family members, and then, start that plan and started finding a job like, that's your career right now. You got to get up in the morning, 8 o'clock. You got to start phoning. You got to, do the job boards, whatever, make connections. It's a plan of attack. My job is finding a job, and treat it that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and great, Donna. It's funny because I actually, there was at one point in time when I had a little bit of a break. I ended up taking some paternal leave, and I said, "Oh, I'll be fine. I'll only need 6 months, and then I'll get right back to work." But that 6 turned into 9 because all of a sudden, what Alberta was at the time was not hiring, right? But similarly to you, it's definitely just about first identifying, and this kind of resonates to me from one of my kickboxing coaches, is that it doesn't matter what you want, it matters what you can have. And if you wanted that job, great, but you don't have it anymore, so hard stop. Now it's about moving forward rather than reflecting back, realizing that if there was some things, or the environment that kind of created the exit, then you need to look at that and unpack that a bit. But ultimately it truly is, okay, let's get, typically when, again, an aggressive letting go or an end to a relationship that wasn't really, it simmers, right? Like you're at this, like a kettle and you're about to kind of whistle, right? You need to be able to take that temperature down and unpack it, like you were mentioning, Don. I think that's definitely the first step. And then put together a plan, and not 1,000-step plan. Just get to step 1, redo resume, or, talk to your community. You'd be surprised. Hey, you know what? Like, this just happened. Like, I'm not feeling good about it. What do you think? And like, some of my inner circle are the best resources. They're like, oh my goodness, you know what? This might be the best thing for you. And I was like, oh, what do you mean? I don't think you were happy there, or whatever it may be, right? So I find that I do lean into my community, my inner circle a bit as well. And then at that point, we can formulate a plan as kind of a team or a community.
I think I made I would say, a mistake in the early part of my life, is that as I got so focused into certain careers, I kind of let go of my community and didn't foster a network group. And so all of a sudden you need them. You're not connected in your chamber or your network groups or your social group. You're kind of out of it, and you have to kind of reconstruct that in order to get that built up. So now I always treat it, I like the words, keep your parachute packed. It's like you've got this kind of mentality that, hey, if something changed tomorrow, I've got a network of 2,000 people on LinkedIn and Facebook connections. I'm staying connected in my community, so that I can reach out and say, hey, I'm looking for something different, or can we have a coffee? I just need a pep talk. I've got those people in my group, in my life, that I can do that with, where there was a time when I let that lapse. And I would say to anyone, always keep that network going, and stay involved with things, because you never know where you're going to need them.
Now I'm going to start to add some context. I deliberately started really broad. Now we narrowed it down a little bit to strategy, a little bit of thinking, some basic process tools and ideas. But I'd like us to, here's a challenge, to define or constitute what a loss actually is. Because some of the things we go through every day, and once again, I'll come back to resilience for a moment. The lower your development for resilience, in other words, your perseverance, your ability to continue to move through challenging or difficult situations, the lower that is, the more likely you are to see, well, just regular everyday life challenges as losses on a consistent basis. And so we can become inured, we can become concreted. There's a new word for the day. We can become fixed to the ground in a spot that we're in, simply because we see everything as not just a challenge, but insurmountable and clearly going to be lost. This is never going to work out. Nothing ever right happens. Nothing good ever happens to me. Why did this happen? I can't believe this has gone on. We all know at least one person in our life that has that kind of mind frame, that kind of mindset. Nothing positive happens. And at that point, every instance of something that doesn't immediately work out becomes a loss. That's very different than what we're trying to talk about today, because losses are actually certifiable and verifiable. So I'll give you a framing, maybe to help you think about it for a moment. I've often said to people that there are a difference between errors and mistakes. Errors are correctable and mistakes go uncorrected. Mistakes are clearly losses. It's something does not work the way it's supposed to, and you missed something, you lost something, you lost track of it, you were unable, unwilling, or unskilled enough to deal with a situation, and it did not work. And mistakes can have catastrophic effects on your life. However, errors aren't necessarily losses all the time. It just means something didn't quite work. Did we learn something? Is there adaptation? Is there ability to change and move, et cetera, and move onward? So losses are very, very different in that they often have repercussions. Because the light turned red faster than you thought it was, you didn't lose, because the grocery store is slightly less on its shelves right now and the cost is up more. It's not a loss today. Man, I really lost out today because everything's more expensive. No, that's a universal standard. That's different. It's not an error or mistake. So let's think about how we define losses for a moment. And losses can even be categorized. There could be business, there could be operations, there could be financial, there could be personal and relationship. There could be the fitness, mental, spiritual loss. There could be things that are devastating to us. An unexpected death could be a loss. Something we can do about it? No, but it's also just a life circumstance, because there's 100% chance we're all going to die. We just don't know when. So is it a loss, or is the loss of the relationship? In other words, you're not with that person anymore. So let's look to define loss a little bit to give people something to kind of look at and go, I'm having a bad day. I'm losing all the time. You're having a bad day. These things happen. You're having a bad day and your car falls into a sinkhole. That starts to get a little different. That's called context.
Yeah, and I'll jump in. Even the statement of bad day is untrue. You've had a bad moment within that day. And maybe it's because some of the things that I've been chatting about with my clients are about, that 86,000 seconds in a day, and you're going to let 10 seconds of it wreck the whole thing, right? Well, is what it is. So to me, like a loss is an unexpected, like family member, right? And the loss of time, I think, is the biggest thing for me. Everything else is an education, right? Or it's practice. And, your comments about error and mistakes, being a parent, if they drop a plate and it breaks, that was practice. They were figuring out what would happen if they dropped a plate. Now, if they do something like that on purpose the next time, well, then at that point, that was a conscious decision, right? So then it's an error in judgment. But I do believe that my personal mentality is that there is no losses. And whether you get a win or a loss in a sports or in business, or you lose a client, like I have a client right now that's in the entertainment industry, and hockey being what it is has actually hurt him, because he would make up time in these businesses and these restaurants and create volume. Well, right now with hockey, he's not needed, right? And I was like, great, what are we doing about it? Because you're not changing that, right? So what are we going to do? And it's not a loss. It's the opportunity to go out and gain new client share or market share through new clients. And then when the other come back, all of a sudden you're twice as busy. There's no loss there. Go to work, right?
Mm-hmm. Don?
Yeah, I think, we have to be very careful about what our mindset is. And if we have this mindset of looking for bad things or losses or whatever, then we do find them. It's just like when you want to buy a new vehicle and all of a sudden you see that vehicle everywhere, your brain is just focused and looking for it. But when you're in that negative mindset, then everything, this happened now and that happened now. And, like you say, my whole day is gone, my whole week is gone, my whole year is gone. And it's like, you can really get into the wrong mindset like that. And you really have to kind of shock yourself into shifting to the other side. Well, what is good about today? Hey, it's a beautiful day. I woke up healthy. I walked to the door, and think about some friends that are in the hospital right now or have cancer or something. It's like, gosh, I'm so lucky to be up where I am. And it's like, just because this dollar didn't show up or whatever, it's like, okay, that's not the end of the world. What is maybe my health. I want to make sure my relationships and so forth, and what's really important. It's not going to be all these things that are bugging me. I'll get through those. We don't starve in this country. So, it's just maybe I have to do with less if that's how it turns out. But just trying to keep that, I guess, glass half full, not half empty. Is so important, and don't get hung up on that. A few bad things happen. I've had some days that just, big things happen. Yeah, I have to get over those and then focus and move forward, because what else can you do? You need to either move forward or you're going to stagnate and die yourself. So move forward. That's how we get through things.
There we go. All right. The worst thing possible happens to you right now. The worst thing you can think of professionally happens to you, or again, right now. What's the first thing you're going to do? What's the first thing you do? Because you have new life experience compared to the last time this happened. You have different lenses, paradigms. You have different methodologies. You have a different strategy. You have a different mindset and outcome. You have a different behavior. Well, everybody's not a coach in this world. Then hire one. For everybody that's listening out there right now, if you don't have a coach and you've ever thought about it, hire one. Hire a life coach, hire a performance coach, hire an executive coach, hire a business coach, hire a whatever you need to do. Get a guru, get a shaman, get somebody with some crystals. It doesn't matter what it is. Get somebody to help you, somebody from the outside looking in on you and going, don't do that, or yeah, definitely do that. And let's make that work a little better. But even if you don't have that, every day that you continue to advance forward evolves your thinking and your framework. So Matt and Don are very different than the people that lost big the last time, or whatever your last big loss was, the one that was before that, you're different. And that evolution, that mindset, and that mentality all cascaded forward. Part of why we do what we do every day here at Virtual Business Box Lunch, so every Friday, is to shorten the learning curve for people. If all of us have to go out and learn the same thing one time by ourselves, it's exhausting. But if one person learns it one time and learns something from their mistakes or errors or losses and immediately passes that on to somebody else, you shorten the path every time we do it. So now we have, because of our own unique life experiences and profession, shortened the path an awful lot. And now by professional practice, we literally help people eliminate losses as they're happening, as they've just occurred, or if we're prescient enough before it even shows up. That's really quite cool. So something big happens right now, not very similar to your last big one. What's your first step? What's your first mechanic?
I think my first would be, evaluate new options that I have, and, in this process of life and learning about other businesses and so forth. I think there's a lot more things that are happening out there that I've not been involved with, but maybe if I had to start over, and say, okay, you can't coach anymore, or you got to do something else. I'd say, well, I've come across a lot of things, or I learned how to research now, all the time about looking for new ideas and things like that. So I love researching. So I think with the internet and the friends and your network, you could quickly say, hey, this got shut down. How do I get on to the next step? What do you think I'd be good at? Get some outside opinions, like you say, a coach or mentor or friends. Get some feedback. Say, what do you think I would be good at, Matt? You've seen me around for a bit. I can't do this anymore. So what else do you think would be? And again, connecting your network and figuring out what's out there, and what are your skills? Do a little analysis, and also what would you like to do? What gets you up in the morning? You'd be excited to do. Not just a job, but I would also look at, say, sometimes I could just do a job just to make sure I was feeding the family. If I got to do that, I'll do that. But overall, I'd still like to have another goal to say, what would I love to do? And maybe I'll move on to that right now.
Yeah, great statements, Don. And I'm smirking through a part of that. But like for myself, if something happened today, I've learned to work the pause. So like stop. And although I'm very much a move forward, stop in the moment, make sure that you're not being overly aggressive and moving in the wrong direction. And then again, like I would actually relook at my resume, because who I was is not who I am. And like Don and Mitch, both of you mentioned, like how is the experience that I've gained through what I've been currently doing going to catapult me into the next, right? So I would say rewrite your own resume at that point and really dive into it. And then again, reach out to your community and your inner circle to say, what have I been good at? Like when we chat, or when you see me kind of go to work or talk about work, where have you seen me kind of light up and kind of explore my passion? And again, we live in a world where like you can be a nobody and have a 15-second video go viral. Now, that is not like, you might as well buy a lotto ticket if that's kind of your retirement plan. But to say that you can't make money doing your passion that is a 100% incorrect statement, right? Find out what you do well, find out what empowers you and gets you up in the morning, and find out how to make money at it. Like, it's not that hard. So, and again, like Don, the research component for sure. Like, I was chatting with a client today about, remember when like the knock on the door would be Encyclopedia Britannica, and it would be about 450 pounds worth of encyclopedias, and that's how you learned and researched. Or like the microfilm, like, the blue and white, and you're picking up. We have all the information. A lot of it's fake right now, so I guess that we need to kind of frame that. Yeah, at the palm of our hands, and we're too busy watching cat videos. Like, spend 30 minutes learning something, right? But and you may find your next new thing, and I think that would be super important.
Yeah,
like producing cat videos.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, I have a cat. I can do that.
Yeah, that's what YouTube was for originally. I think just to watch cat videos. And now it's such a learning channel and search engine next to Google. It's one of the biggest search engines. People looking for information and how we used to have the what was the auto mechanics Bible? When you had to fix your car, you had to go to pull out Schumann's or something book, look up. Now any little thing, change the air filter on my car, right, for that exact brand and year, whatever. This is how you change it. Open up the dash, build it. I do it myself. It's like, wow, that was so cool. Exact video of how to do what I want to do. But we brought up a point, Matt, about your resume too. So many resumes I've seen are just sort of this cookie cutter version that they put in there. And they said they don't even bother to think about their past and tailor the resume to the type of job or career you want. And when we look, the longer you've been in business or careers, the more options you've had in your past. So if you want to be sales, you could pull all the sales things out and say, I'm going into sales, or I'm going into management is what I'm after, or I want to be a technician or whatever. You could pull all those things out, and you think in your life, there's been so many great experiences, but adjust your resume to kind of focus on that kind of group. You say, if that's my target, or maybe you've got not sure of your target. So you got 3 different resumes, a sales, a management, a technician role. And, you put the right one out there, but that helps focus your thinking that you've got so much experience in your back pocket. How do you pull that out and present it in such a way that it, engages the viewer to say, oh, I want to talk to Don about that. He's got some interesting background related to what I need.
All right, let's start defining these losses. What does the learned panel of doctors today? No, everybody's not a doctor on here. What does the learned panel here today think constitutes a loss financially? What's a loss? And no, not whatever your, investment broker says, thank you, marketplace, or what the app for your cryptocurrency account says is going on right now, because money's fake, but it's still necessary to life. So What do we consider a loss financially? What's losing financially?
I think it's like something that you cannot recover from. Again, in business, you need to almost expect losses. There's going to be a time. And again, like, we live in such a volatile time right now that you need to be there. That said, a loss is something that you just cannot recover from. It's catastrophic.
I think there are losses too that are it's not replaceable. And you accept your loss. Like in the stock market, if you don't sell anything, you've never really recorded a loss, right? You hold your stock, bought Bitcoin, fell in half, but I didn't sell it. So it's not a loss yet.
Right.
As soon as I sell it, it's a loss. I cannot replace the half that's gone. I have to re-earn that. But as long as it's still alive and doing something, it's got potential to be replaced. But once you make it final, you sold the stock, you did this, you spent the money, you can't get it back, it's gone. I find, like, that's a loss. And you have to evaluate, is there something I learned from it that was valuable, or was I just kind of stupid? I didn't really check it out and, didn't pay attention. That's a loss. It's like, gosh, I wish I would have learned more about this before I jumped in, or, I should have watched for when this happened, and it could have got out sooner, or many different things where I, you have to take some responsibility. It's not just the fact that the world changed. You could have done something, but I just wasn't paying attention to that. I was working on something else.
It took to bring up finances to quote unquote get to the point of today more than anything else. We've looked at defining losses and maybe understanding a little bit, and I brought up the just now the idea of financials, what really constitutes a loss, and some important details are coming out. And this is part of process to start with. It's something that both of you have illuminated at the beginning. Illustrate what happened when you had a bigger loss in life, how you deal with loss, what you're going to do, what your strategy would be now that things have started to evolve. And I've heard the same basic detail out of both of you, particularly right now. Your attention to detail is really important, and not the microscopic, but most frequently. And if we think about money for a moment too, it's when either our perspective changes. So in other words, if you have stock or Bitcoin financially for a moment, it's not a loss until you sell it. It's not. Now, is it going to recover? We don't know. We don't know. But until you sell it, the amount of Bitcoin you have hasn't changed. The amount you put in has. If you take it out right now, you have far less money than what you did putting into it over the last year. And if you've bought it in bits and pieces, as opposed to just throwing money in chunks at it at once, then the kind of loss is actually really varied. Depends on the day. If you bought last year when it micro crashed on 3 exchanges down to $5,000 US per Bitcoin, and happened to get lucky enough in about a 12-minute window where instead of buying Bitcoin for $15,000 or $18,000 and then otherwise in the mid 30s, and you bought it for $5,000, you're still up. If you were lucky in watching Bitcoin on 3 exchanges, you're actually up still. So it's not a loss at all. Everybody else is going, I lost so much money. Only if you sell. So perspective and attention to detail is really important. So if we take perspective and attention to detail vis-a-vis how we perceive what's going on with losses, what else can we be doing to either change that mind frame or start to catch yourself earlier? Because we're going to lose. Baseball analogy, Matt, thanks for bringing it up. We're going to lose 7 times out of 10, but if I'm right 3 times out of 10 at the plate, I'm going to make millions a year and I might go to the Hall of Fame. If I'm right 33 times out of 100 and I do it for 7 years, I might go to the Hall of Fame. If I'm right 33 times out of 100 and I make it 10 years, I'm definitely in the Hall of Fame. And if I can get 2 more dudes on my team to do the same thing, we all work together and do the same thing, and we're only right 33 times out of 100, times 3 of us, we've probably won a couple of championships. Now, you got to get it wrong and lose the other 67 times at the plate to get it right 33. So if it's about perspective, what else can we do to stave that off, and how else can other people start to change their perspective, their mindset?
I think don't stick your head in the sand.
Yeah.
Right? And I think a lot of small, medium-sized businesses are like, no, it'll be fine. Right. There's been a lot of talk of, what color the provincial government flies right now. And, I'll just wait till the next one, or I'll do this, or I'll do that. It's not going to change. Your business model is your business model. So that said, just to qualify with losses as well, with Bitcoin or any sort of like stock that goes up and down, it's also about what's the next thing that you could take that half of your money and reinvest. Like if there's something else that you can see making you money, then maybe the loss is okay. And again, it's not a loss if you can make it back on the back end. Now, it's an interesting conversation to have about what first is a loss, but more importantly, how you deal with it on the outset, right? But to find it as a 1 alarm fire before it becomes a 5 alarm is where the 1% succeed, right? Every business has challenges, every businesses have loss, but define what it is, react to it very quickly so that it doesn't get out of control. Because when you have a 5 alarm fire, it's going to take a pretty big community of firefighters to get that under control.
Mm-hmm. And in the baseball analogy, I think the important thing there was that you have to take swings. You have to be active, in order to get 33 in a third, you have to miss that 66 times out of 100, but you have to take shots. As Gretzky says, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. You need to be taking those shots and understand that you're going to miss. Last night's Oilers Flames game. McDavid, the best player on the planet, has an off day. His whole game was pretty well. He just wasn't productive. He was participating, whatever, but he got the final goal that won the series. So at the right opportune time, he was shooting, he was missing, he was getting the puck was stolen from him, but one time he made the goal, and it changed the whole outcome of that series. What a great example of, it just takes a certain amount of wins. You may not get a whole bunch of them. You may spend, your, in that case, 3 hours of not winning and 10 seconds of winning, but it made all the difference. And it could be the same with business. We have to fail and fall forward. We have to fail and learn and move forward. It's so important to understand that and it goes back to your errors and mistakes. It's like, if you keep making mistakes, like you keep spending money on the wrong thing and well, then you got to learn, smarten up, get some help.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're just an error, say, well, I tried to, this piece of marketing to get more business to that didn't quite work. I'm going to try Facebook. I'm going to try Google ads. I'm going to try YouTube, Bing search, like move it around, change the ads digitally, that's just one aspect where you can really keep on trying. There's a lot of errors, but if you can finally keep whittling down, I got a 20% return on that. I got a 22% return by changing it to a different color. It's like, okay, keep moving it up, moving the needle up, so keep falling forward.
I want to stay on that for a moment and stick with it. And no, it's not just all sports analogies that are comparable, but those are shared experiences. Even if you're not a huge sports fan, or a hockey fan, or a mixed martial arts fan, or a baseball fan, there are certain comparables or analogies. So take that to business for a moment. You could have 10 days in a row. That's 5 business days. That's 2 weeks worth of your life. That same comparison or analogy for a moment means that 7 days, things aren't going to work out the way you want them to. But 3, you get it right, and that can make the difference. You brought it up, and Don, I'm actually going to fixate on hockey for a moment because I know the 3 of us on this call are. And you brought up McDavid. And yes, he's clearly recognized as one of the top, if not the top players in the world. So here he is. The guy had only 1 goal all night. Just 1 goal. Okay. He had 4 shots on net. So he only did his job right 25% of the time. And for all those shifts on the ice, he played 26 minutes. So in 26 minutes, he only fired the puck 4 times, and it only had to work right once. Now, this is one of the best players, acknowledged by everyone, by players themselves, by the management, by international hockey, by the fans. One of the absolute best. Is he going to be one of the best that ever played? Don't know. He's still playing. But he played 26 minutes in a 63-minute game last night, managed to quote unquote do his job right 4 times. He's a center and a forward, and he gets paid to put up points, and only got 1 goal. But where'd that 1 goal come? Game winner. You got to get it right in the right time. Mm-hmm. And otherwise, let's see, if those 4 shots each take 3 seconds for him to tee up. So he did his job right 12 seconds out of 26 minutes and 38 seconds last night. Nobody's asking him what he did for the other 26 minutes and 20 seconds. Everybody's talking about the fact that he scored the game-winning goal in overtime. Did he lose the other 25 minutes or 26 minutes? Or is this all that mattered at the end? Mm-hmm. Got his job right for 3 seconds. Mm-hmm. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think, the important part of that particular game too is that he's still hustling, and in his own interview at the end, he says, hey, I've been riding the coattails of all the other players tonight until the last second, in overtime, but he understood, but he still had a part to play, and I'm still getting up to bat. I know I'm off my game tonight. I can't seem to, hang on to the puck or take the shots I'm supposed to, but I'm playing, and I think that's an important aspect is you got to get up and keep playing. One of the U.S. generals said, when you're having like bad day, you can't get motivated, at least get up and make your bed every day. Just start the day with something you complete. Good. It's neat. It's nice. I got up. I got out of bed. I made my bed. one thing done, move on to the next piece. Doesn't have to be find $100,000 a year job today. It has to be, just start with making the bed, and then we'll move on to breakfast and shave and shower and phone, and then maybe make 2 cold calls. It's like we'll work our way up, but moving forward, even if you think it's not working, keep trying.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I think we should be on a sports network. I'm going to actually shy away from another sports analogy right now, but the making the bed philosophy is something that I, as a parent, do every single day. And it's not just making your bed half-hearted either. It's like, take pride in your ability and do it the best that you can. Well, what do you mean? It's just my bed. Yeah, but do it the best that you can. And over the course of time, your best is even better. And it's chipping away at that while trying to enjoy the journey of making the bed, I guess you would say, right? Mm-hmm. But it really is that refined, like you're building a sculpture, everybody. And it's like chip, 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 chip. But to build a sculpture, you're taking big chunks off at the very beginning. So focus on the macro, focus on what's going to make the biggest impact. And again, like there's some marble sculptures out there that are the second version, because the first version, they tapped just a little bit too hard. So is that a loss? Who knows? Maybe they repurposed and reused that, right? But that kind of speaks to career development. If plan A is no longer your plan A, what are all the tools that you have? And how can you repurpose that into plan B? And I think that's so important in the world of today right now.
We're going to close out today a little early. I think we've got some good stuff in here for people to get through. One comment's cropped up. Scott, thanks so much for coming on here and commenting. For everybody else, I hope the silence is stunned, because this has been helpful. I want to summarize what we've discussed today, and this is commentary from Don and Matt. And of course, part of my job is to steer the course of the discussion into an area. Sometimes I have an outcome that I want. Sometimes I have an idea, and sometimes I have a theme, and I want to see what other people think. Part of it's validation. If I'm thinking this and I consider Matt and Don and everybody else that comes and joins us on the panel as incredibly clever, bright, and, well, more importantly, knowledgeable about their subject, that helps me to feel good about what I'm doing. Now, when we do this every week for the audience that's out there, understand it's for you. Yeah, I get to talk and you have to listen to my voice, and we bring on Matt and Paul and Don, and we've had Yulia and Lorette and other people have joined us in the past, and they'll continue to join us in the future. But we do it for you, because one of the largest losses that most people have, and we only focused on money and we talked about some big things that are happening, but if you listen to the actual words Don and Matt were bringing up, and more importantly, what they meant by it, good relationships, perspective, and willingness to move. Take stock, move, have good relationships around you, and change your perspective on what's going on, so that losses don't stay losses for long, or they can be converted into something else. Matt just brought up something analogous for a moment to sculpting, stonework, because he said he didn't want to talk about sports anymore. Shame on you, sir. But how many large statues that are the second version of the first one, how many of those first versions were turned into smaller statues instead? Shit, I tapped the wrong place and the thing split in half. Well, it doesn't mean the rest of the stone's unusable. Our ability to persevere and move forward, and our ability to do these things are really important. But if you come back just to hear every week, you're going to hear from 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 other people that have lived through very similar situations to you, very similar environments to you, and certainly almost identical business situations to what you are going through. We have a global impact being created right now through war, supply chain, inflation in certain countries and regions, etc., all causing impacts. Those impacts are being felt by everybody. The wealthiest among us still feel it, but their cushion's bigger than yours. The poorest among us are hardest hit. Everybody feels an impact that has been created because of this, which means that when one person has an idea, and this is to deal with loss, but more importantly, challenge, change, all those things that business has every day that we must deal with, the faster you learn how to deal with it, the less the losses hurt. The more likely you adapt and make change, And in the case of a giant statue, if you tap the wrong place and break it in half, the quicker you get back to making smaller statues. After all, if your goal is to become a sculptor and build statues for a living, does it have to be 6 feet tall? Or it can be 101 foot tall statues, because the same chunk of stone can get broken down to a bunch more. Our ability to adapt and thrive as environments change, situations move, and often, so let's go back to that sports analogy for a moment. We don't get what we want, and yet excellence can still be pursued. That's how we create success in business and in life. The better your circle is around you, the faster you're going to learn. There is a well-noted, and he's one of the top YouTube podcasters or one of the top YouTube entertainers in the world, talks about how he got started. I love paraphrasing this. And no, I'm not going to say his name because, well, one, I don't want to get sued, and two, he doesn't need my help making more money. Goodness sakes. When he got started developing his YouTube channel, and by the way, he makes a great deal in ad revenue, and he has millions and millions of followers, and lots of content comes out. He started in a little pool with people, and he actually had roommates for a while. And he goes, our first 90 days, first 3 months, 4 months, we'd spend 18 hours a day on a Twitch call. And we'd spend the entire time on there dissecting other videos, looking at what other people created, and starting to map and create our own content. And the moment we created something, somebody would make a mistake. And these are the words you use. Somebody would make a mistake on Tuesday. By Wednesday, the rest of us had learned from it. I would do something wrong on Thursday. Everybody else had made up for it by Friday. And something else would go wrong on Saturday. And by Sunday, we had all done something better. Losses and change and challenges are necessary to life, and they happen in business all the time. Our ability to be able to understand what they are, figure out what really happened, and then pick something to do next. Is there something usable in what I've got, or do I have to discard it and start over? These are really the decisions we have to make. And in business, losses aren't losses unless you quote unquote sell early. Pause, measure, understand what happened, pick a course of action, get really great people around you to help support, and then start to move again. Because you only got to get it right 3 times in 10 to go to the Hall of Fame in sports. And sports, just like the rest of life, ain't that far off. By the way, you're going, well, how does that apply to business? Because, I can't get it right 3 times out of 10, Mitch. It's idiocy. Most salespeople are only right 5 times out of 100. Or 6 times out of 100, or 7 times out of 100. They're not right 8 times in 10 until they get to the right audience, where 8 times in 10 makes some of the best salespeople on the planet. The best salespeople on the planet are right 8 or 9 or even 10 times out of 10 once they're in the room full of people that they had to go through 100 to get to first, or 50 or 20. But what also makes them the best is, unlike you, who may need to talk to 100 people to get one person to say yes, they spent so much time learning from losses and lessons that now they have to talk to 30 to get 2 to say yes, or 25 to get 3, or 20 to get 4, which means that when they talk to 100 people, their productivity is 5 times higher than yours. It is 10 times higher than yours, which means the amount of work they have to do is less. Don, Matt, it is an absolute pleasure as always, my brothers. Thank you so much. I heart you guys for showing up as always. To our live audience today, thank you so much for coming in. And I'm pointing at the other screen because I can see all the stats going on up there. It has been a pleasure to share this with you. Not heavy, but involved in life and business. This one's important because this is what happens every single day. You got losses, baby, and you got wins, and you got to figure out how to sort it out. Matt, Don, thank you so much for joining us. Mitch Camage, 1% business needs a 1% attitude. I am your host. This is the Virtual Business Box Lunch. It is May 27th of 2022. Check out the rest of season 2. Check out all of season 1. You'll see pretty much everybody here all the time. We will see you all next week on the next VBBL. And thank you so much for joining us, and have a fantastic